Today we're going to learn about rounding again. Today our objective is I can round decimal numbers to a given place value. We're going to start off kind of the same way, looking at decimal numbers now. So now we're looking at rounding to a tenth. So right here we have 1/10. Over here we got 2/10. All three of the numbers I have below here fall between those 2/10. Let's go ahead and put them on the number line here. So 182 thousandths. You can see there's kind of 18, 1, 8. Here's 1, 9. 182 would fall in between those. All right, fall right about there. 128 thousandths. 1.12.13. It's going to fall closer to that 1, 3. And 150 thousandths is going to fall right there at 15 hundredths. These are actually equivalent fractions. They're equal to each other. They look a little different, just this one has a 0 at the end. Now, just like before, I'm going to put my little dashed line here, that separates where we're going to round. We're going to keep it the same, or we're going to round our numbers up. If any of the numbers are lower than the middle here, where the 5 is in the hundredths column, I will round that to 1/10. If it is larger than that 5 in the hundredths column, it rounds up to 2/10 because it's closer to 2/10 than it is to 1/10. So you can see here, this number is obviously going to round down. This number is obviously going to round up. And we're, once again, called that dilemma. We have a number right in the middle. It's right on that yellow line. If they land on the line, they are going to go up. We round those up. And just like we did before here, I am going to identify my place value. So if I'm looking at the tenths, here's the tenth. I look to the right. Remember, if you remember back to the other one, our rule was if it was 5 or higher, we rounded it up. We add 1. Well, 8 is higher than 5, so I'm going to add 1 to the 1. Make it 2. If you look over here, there's my tenths. Look to the right. 2 is less, 4 less, so I'm going to ignore the 1. I'm going to leave it the same. That's why it rounds down to the 1/10. Same rules. When we round, we always use the same rule every time. It doesn't matter if we're rounding whole numbers or rounding decimals. Right? We use the same rule. Even if we round fractions later in here, it's the same rule. And this poem, once again, can help you. You locate your number, look right next door, 5 or higher, add 1 more. 4 or lower, just ignore. So now some practice. Round to the nearest hundredth. We got another place values. We talk about decimals. We have that TH at the end, hundredths. Here's my tens. My tenths, right? Here's my hundredths right here. And I just write 100 TH after that. Here is a thousandths. We don't have a once. It starts with tenths, then hundredths, then thousandths. So if I'm going to round to the nearest hundredths, I locate my hundredths. I look right next door. Is it 5 or higher? Yes, it is. Then I'm going to add 1 more. I'm going to add 1 to the 4 here, making that 5. All the numbers in the front stay the same. The numbers behind it change to zeros. If you would like, right, if you notice, a lot of times we don't always put the zeros at the end of our decimals. We can actually change that to 5.35, right? 5 and 35 hundredths. That's the exact same as 5 and 350 thousandths. These two numbers are what we call equivalent. They're equal to each other. You could put as many zeros on the end as you want. You could also put as many zeros in the front as you want. If you put them on the outsides of the numbers, they're fine. We don't need to put extra ones, so sometimes, a lot of times in the book, you'll see it written this way without the extra zero. Round to the nearest tenth. Well, we know tenth is where we start at when we talk about decimals. So there's my tenth. Look to the right. If 4 or lower, I just ignore. I keep it a 2. It's going to stay 2. All the numbers in front stay the same. The numbers behind turn to zeros. Now I can either write 0, 0, 0 behind the 2, like that, or I could just write nothing behind it because it's the exact same. Right? They're equivalent decimals. I don't need to write those zeros and waste my lead. And that's the way a lot of times you'll see it written in math, because in math we don't like to write extra stuff. So why write those zeros if they're not needed? And here's our last one here, round to the nearest millionth. So once again, go ahead and try to pause the video here and see if you can do this on your own, and then check as I'm doing the work here to see if you got it done correctly. Millionth. I think it's a little tricky. If you think back to when we talked about naming our decimals, we talked about place value, I would probably go this way and actually put a 1 in the decimal and write a million below it. Remember, here's 1,000, or be 10,000, 100,000. Right there's a million. Right there's a million. So this 2 is in the millionth column. It's kind of the way I can check to see where I'm at place value wise. So the 2 is in the millionth place. I look right next door. It's 5. So I'm going to add 1 more. And get 2 to a 3. Rewrite all the numbers in front of it. And I can then either add the 0 for the 5, changing that 5 to 0, or I can just leave it alone. If you have any questions now on rounding decimals, we will talk about this video beginning in class tomorrow.